Good morning. Hello. Hello, small baby humans. How are you today? I am doing lovely. As you can tell, I am wide awake on this lovely Tuesday morning and ready to chit chat with you one last time this quarter semester thing, because these will be the last notes we go through. Tomorrow is quiz day and the end of the quarter, so you don't have to listen to me babble on anymore until probably about January. So today is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020, and this is In Case You Missed It. Hope this finds you well, hope your family's well, hope everything's going okay for you, and if you're watching this, just get down the main ideas and you'll be in good shape. So the reminders today, first of all, if you have any late work that you want put in the grade book, and I hope you do because, man, I want you to do well, you need to submit that by Wednesday night at midnight. So I can get that graded. So please get that done as soon as you can. Make sure you're checking your grades and make sure all your standards are above 2s, guys. We don't need any of you guys failing your classes. So you just got to throw in a little effort here, and we're going to do the best we can to help you get through. Don't forget tomorrow morning, which is the 28th itself, we're going to be taking a quiz in class. So you need to make sure you show up. We're going to just chit chat for a minute at the start, do a little trivia, and then I'm going to share a Google form link with you to make sure that you guys are all going in the right direction. Okay. So today's the last discussion day of stuff, and we're just going to kind of clean up some loose ends on imperialism. Remember that the quiz tomorrow is on both Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. So you're getting the stuff like those 12 things everyone should know about Chapter 4, and then also the stuff about imperialism. That quiz is going to be 17. It's like a total of 17 true and false and multiple choice questions, followed by one short essay. And the short essay question has to do with those reasons for expansion that we talked about. I think maybe yesterday, maybe it was Friday. I can't remember. But check through your notes. You should have it. Okay. Okay. So today, the first topic is going to be the Spanish-American War. Now, Spanish-American War. Let's see if we can get rid of that annoying thing in the background. That's bogus. Oh, it doesn't. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the Spanish-American War was fought in 1898, and the war roughly took 90 days. It really wasn't much of a war to speak of at all. As a matter of fact, more Americans died from malaria that they got from mosquito bites than died from, gunshot wounds or any kind of battle wounds. So it wasn't a really bloody battle. Also, the Spanish although they were seen kind of as a world power, they were on their way out, and so they didn't really have the best stuff. They had wooden boats and crappy guns, and they just didn't seem very into it. And so the Spanish-American War is a 90-day war, very brief war, that's fought between the United States and Spain over Cuba. And that sounds weird because why are we involved? Well, Cuba is an island about 90 miles off the coast of Florida. If you follow Florida straight down, you're going to run into Cuba. People have tried to swim it for sport. You got to be careful because there's sharks in it. But the Cubans were a colony of Spain. The Cubans felt like they were being mistreated, overtaxed, treated poorly, very similar to what the British had done to us prior to the Revolutionary War. And so we felt some sympathy for Cuba. We appealed to Spain to try to get them to allow Cuba more self-rule or complete independence. And the Spanish were more or less shut up. We don't have to listen to you guys. And so we tried to do the best we could to support Cuba, but we kind of, at first, were going to stay out of it until some things happened. First of all, American newspapers started to exaggerate stories about what was happening in Cuba. We call that yellow journalism. I think President Trump would call it fake news. Says that CNN exaggerates stories about him. I'm sure Biden thinks that Fox News exaggerates stories about him. And so that idea of fake news and yellow journalism is really kind of the same thing, where you take a story and you explode it. You blow it out of proportion because it helps your newspaper sales. The other things newspapers realized is that newspapers sold better during wartime. So if there was a war, they could make a bigger profit. And so they started to tell these terrible stories about how Cubans were being treated. Some of them true, some of them stretched way out. And Americans read the stories and went, wow, this is terrible. Maybe we should help them. Maybe we should go to war with Spain to help Cuba get independence. But then ultimately, the old saying is the straw that broke the camel's back, the last thing, is the explosion of the USS Maine. Now, the USS Maine was a U.S. Navy boat. It was stationed in Havana Harbor in Cuba to not only kind of keep track of what was going on in Cuba, but also to protect any Americans that were in Cuba. And for a few months, the Maine sat there and nothing happened. And the sailors on board were bored and nothing happened and nothing happened and nothing happened. Then all of a sudden, one night in February of 1898, while all the sailors were asleep on board the Maine, kablooey, it explodes. When the newspapers got a hold of the story, they naturally blamed Spain. And the next morning, the newspapers read like, Spain blows up Maine. Maine explodes. Maine is done. 270 Americans killed. Americans were, oh man, there were arms half a mile into Havana. There were eyes floating in the water. It was pretty bad, apparently. And our newspapers blamed it completely on Spain. So when Americans sit down to breakfast and they open their newspaper and they're like, oh, what happened yesterday? Oh my God, the Spain blew up. The Spaniards blew it up. We got to get them. War. And so they asked the government to go to war. Historical side marker, the Spanish didn't blow up the Maine. It was really poorly designed. The engine room was right here, and the ammunition was here, and the wall that they shared had hot coal on one side and barrels of gunpowder on the other. And so what they think happened is the wall heated up and caused the gunpowder to go kablooey, and our boat blew itself up. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't matter because we give the Spanish one last ultimatum or chance to do the right, to what we think is the right thing, and wants Cuba be free. And when they say no, we declare war on them. Now, the war itself, again, nothing too flashy. Mostly a land war fought in Cuba, a couple of Navy battles that happened in the Pacific Ocean. So you've got like fighting in Cuba, and then a little bit of fighting in the Philippines on the other side of the world. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Really kind of a couple groups of soldiers get famous during the Spanish-American War. You have Teddy Roosevelt, who will go on to be president after the Spanish-American War. And the group of people he led named the Rough Riders. The Rough Riders, first of all, were a volunteer group created by Teddy Roosevelt to fight in this war because I'll tell you more about Teddy Roosevelt second semester. But the Rough Riders were made up of pro athletes, college athletes, cowboys, Indians, some New York socialite rich people. And Teddy Roosevelt was very famous. And they were very positively covered in the American newspapers. And they actually fought really, really well. They were involved in every major battle and were a major reason why we won those battles. The other member of soldiers the other group of soldiers that get famous during the war are called the Buffalo Soldiers. They're led by a guy named John Pershing. And the Buffalo Soldiers were an all African-American group of soldiers. They'd gotten their name from fighting against the Indians in the West, Buffalo, in the West. So they called them the Buffalo Soldiers. And the Rough Riders and the Buffalo Soldiers often fought side by side. And so the press that was covering the Rough Riders also saw the Buffalo Soldiers and wrote about their deeds. They were both very popular in the newspapers and helped the American newspapers sell millions of copies. Regardless, the war is pretty easily won. We win in, like I said, 90 days, and it's a very important win for us because not only did we win, yay, woo, get the dub, but we also beat a country that was still kind of considered to be a world power, and that made the rest of the world pay a lot more attention to us and take us a lot more seriously. But the big thing that we get out of it is, if I hit enter like it was going to do something, is the Treaty of Paris. The treaty at the end of the war really benefits us. It really favors us. It's a major win for American imperialists. It's a major win for the United States, period. The first thing that happens is Cuba gets its independence. We do not take over Cuba. We do not want to take over Cuba. We thought that would make us look bad. And so Cuba gets their independence and we become their super BFF. And for a chunk of time. They're not always our friend, though. And that gives us access to their sugar crops and all the different things that they grow in Cuba. We do, however, gain 3 pieces of territory. We get an island in the Pacific called Guam, which we still use for military bases today. We get Puerto Rico, which is still an American territory and probably could be the 51st state if they wanted to. And then this island chain called the Philippines in the Pacific Ocean, which we don't own anymore, but we still have a decent relationship and a bunch of military bases there. So we get given those 3 territories, which gives us more space around the globe and more bases and more resources and more markets and all those reasons why we would expand. But there's some argument about this. And the reason that there's argument about it is there's a lot of Americans who disagree with the treaty. They go, how can we fight to get Cuba free, get their independence, and then we take over 3 other places. It seems a little hypocritical. It would be like if I said there's no food or drink in my classroom as I was drinking a Pepsi and eating a donut. That would seem wrong. And even though a lot of people were critical of the treaty, it still was signed and accepted, and we took those territories over. Okay. Now I almost hit enter again. Jeez Louise, old. All right, the last slide is just some odds and ends, some important things from the unit that really kind of didn't get time to talk about yet. And one of them is the building of the Panama Canal. Panama is a country that's an isthmus, means it's thin and it has water on both sides. And Panama is where North and South America meet. So as North America comes down, there's this thin little strip of land called Panama, and then you have Colombia and Venezuela. So we decided that we wanted to build a canal, a man-made river, that would allow us to make the trip from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean shorter. Otherwise, you go all the way down around South America, which is dangerous and takes a really long time. And so we get an agreement with Panama that allows us to build the Panama Canal. So we've got to dig across, we've got to build these locks, they're going to move boats up and down, man-made river, man-made lake, all this stuff. And it's a lot of work. It's an engineering marvel. At that time in history, it was probably one of the most difficult things ever built in the history of this planet. It cost a lot of money. A lot of people died. Again, more so from malaria, from mosquito bites than from like actual like explosions or anything like that. The U.S. government spends a ridiculous amount of money building it, but we also spend a ridiculous amount of money killing mosquitoes to keep our workers safe. I think I read someplace that they estimate they spent $10 per mosquito to kill them. Imagine if in the summer you went like that and the government sent you $10 for killing a mosquito. It'd be pretty awesome. Live in Wisconsin, I'd be a millionaire. All in all, the Panama Canal works perfectly. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It shortens the travel time down between the 2 oceans. It allows us, instead of having an Atlantic Navy and a Pacific Navy, to have just one Navy that can travel in between. And although we don't still have control of the Panama Canal, we gave it to Panama in 1999. It's still an important part of how our Navy does business in the world. And the last topic is kind of this idea of diplomacy. And actually, there's the Roosevelt corollary on there, but I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to talk about dollar diplomacy and gunboat diplomacy. Now, diplomacy is this idea, it's basically a term for how do countries get along with each other? Like, how does Canada talk to the United States? How does Mexico talk to Russia? How does blah, blah, blah talk to blah, blah, blah? And we use the term diplomacy. People can also be diplomatic. It's just kind of a nice way of doing things. If you aren't doing your homework in class and you're not passing, and I walk up to you and I say something like, hey, I was kind of wondering what your goals were in this class, because I'd really like to see you do well, but right now things aren't going so well. So what do we need to do to make you pass? That would be me being diplomatic instead of going, pass the dang class. It's not that hard. You can do it. Yeah, you get a W. Anyway, dollar diplomacy is where you use money as leverage to get some country to do what you want them to do. So I'll give you a country example, and then I'll give you how this works in real life. So let's say that there's, knock on something wooden, there's a big earthquake today in Central America, and Honduras needs $50 million. So we would call up Honduras and say, hey, you guys need $50 million. We're willing to lend it to you. Take this money. And they build hospitals or fix their buildings or fix bridges or whatever it is they have to do. And we don't really ask for the money back. Then in a few years, let's say we're looking for some place to park an aircraft carrier. We need a harbor to park an aircraft carrier in. We go, hey, Nicaragua, we would really love to park our aircraft carrier in your country. And they say, ooh, we don't really like that idea. We don't want that thing here. That's big and scary. We don't want it. We don't have room for it. We go, ooh, you remember that $50 million that I lent you? We could either park the boat in your country or you could give us that back. And so where do we put the boat? Your parents probably do this to you to some extent. Mine did when I was your age. They do things like, I don't know, let's say you ask for $20 to buy something or go someplace or something, and they go, yeah, sure, here's a 20. And then you have a good time, or you get that thing, you're having a great time, and then your parents look at you and go, hey, we need you to do the dishes. You're like, ooh, I was thinking, I didn't want to do that. And they go, ooh, you remember that 20 we lent you? Yeah, you want to give that back? Oh, no, go do the dishes. Maybe they remind you who pays your cell phone bill or who pays this or who pays that. And you're like, ah, crap, I have to go clean the garage, or ah, crap, I have to walk the dog, or whatever thing it is that you do. So that is using money as leverage. Now, gunboat diplomacy is also known as big stick diplomacy. Teddy Roosevelt, when he was president, had this saying: it was either walk softly and carry a big stick, or speak softly and carry a big stick. And this is basically where you threaten force to get someone to do what you want them to do. We had this really awesome Navy around 1900. And so Teddy Roosevelt would go, you see all these boats over here? We could blow you out of the water if we wanted to, or you could do what we want you to do. So what do you want to do? And everyone always did what we wanted to do. In real life, it would be like, let's say we were working on something in class. Let's say you guys were all sitting inside my classroom, and I'm walking around the room and everybody's working except one person, and that person's watching Netflix. And so I'm going to be nice, speak softly, carry a big stick. Oh, hey, it'd be really great if you'd stop watching Netflix and get some work done. I believe in you. And I walk around the room again. Nothing's really happening. Everyone's working. Life is good. I get back to that same kid still watching Netflix. I go, oh, dude, come on, man. You can do this. That'd be awesome if you get to stop watching that movie and, get working on your assignment. Speak softly, right? Now, the next time I come around the room, if that person's still not doing what they're supposed to do, bam! I'll whack them in the back of the head because I spoke softly. But now I'm using that threat of force. I'm carrying the big stick and I'll whap them in the back of the head. Okay. And so again, be nice until it's time to not be nice. You can probably think of examples where either you've used that or someone's used that on you, this threat of force to get you to do something. If you're like the youngest brother or sister, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So that's really it for today. Make sure you have all your notes because tomorrow's quiz day. Last day of class for a while tomorrow. It's going to be kind of weird because I've finally got used to having a lot of you guys around and you're gone. I will see you tomorrow. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to help you out. Bye.